Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley, Stewart, Robson and Ali Moreno. Gab Marcotti will be with us shortly as we'll be counting down to the kick-off of the World Cup final. But we'll start by just reflecting, shall we, on Belgium against England. Of course, it was the third-place match today. Belgium with a 2-0 victory against Gareth Southgate's side. But was you surprised? It was pretty much strong teams, wasn't it, from both?
I just thought that you could see from the game how more advanced Belgium are, even within the squad, within their technique, the quality of their possession, the quality of their passing. And if Lukaku had a better touch, because he had a couple of horrendous touches from great positions where Hazard and De Bruyne put him through, this game would have been out of sight. But well done, Belgium. They'll be kicking themselves that after beating Brazil that they're not in the final, because looking at them through the tournament, they were good enough to get there, and they were good enough to win it.
Yeah, I think the game showed that, as Craig said, Belgium are that little bit more advanced. They've got better players. When you look when Belgium were counter-attacking, it went to Eden Hazard and he's running with the ball and going past people. De Bruyne finding passes. Yes, Lukaku didn't play particularly well. Their wing-backs dominated the game. One crosses the ball for the other one to score. And England just lacked that little bit of creativity, that little extra spark. They played quite well in the second half. They got a lot of set plays. They looked dangerous from set plays. They won the ball back in quite good areas. But when it came to the top third of the field, Belgium were in a different league.
Do you know who's to blame for all of this?
You.
Adnan Januzaj. If he didn't score, Belgium would be in the final, wouldn't they?
Potentially, yes, when you consider what their matchup would have been as compared to what it was for England. Look, when you watch England play against Croatia and now against Belgium, it only strengthens the storyline and the rhetoric that they got fortunate with the bracket, that the opposition that they had to play under the circumstances in which they had to play that opposition, which is not their fault. You only play what's in front of you. But the truth is that weaker opposition allowed England to advance in a tournament in which once they started playing high quality, real high quality of opposition at their very best, England was not good enough. And so we got a chance to look behind the curtain, and I think as an English fan, you'd be encouraged from what you saw up until this point, but then you have to have sort of a reality check and say there's work to be done as well.
Where do we stand on England? There seems to be two very definite sides in the sense that one is what a great achievement. You know, no one expected them to go through to the semi-finals. That's countered by the other side by, well, look at the opposition they had to play.
Well, look, particularly north of the border, north of Hadrian's Wall, where my country, Scotland, there's an untold amount of people ready to jump on this bandwagon and say, these English, they're all arrogant. I'm not getting on that. I'm fed up listening to it, because you know, Scotland need to look in before they look out. England got to the semi-finals, but as Ali said, the draw was nice to them. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's the cards that you're dealt. Listen, they lost to Iceland in the Euros. It was a disaster. They finished bottom of the group in Brazil. How Roy Hodgson saved his job after that, God only knows. This is a step forward for them. But I think, as Ali said, when you peel it back and you look at it, I think that Gareth Southgate knows there's a hell of a lot of work to be done. I mean, they'll go to the Euros probably in good confidence, but looking at the Belgium side, they'll go there thinking, right, we got to stamp this, we got to win this and really stamp. I still don't think England are there, but they've got guys that have got few caps, like Harry Maguire, like Jordan Pickford, like Loftus-Cheek, and many more who can get better as they go along. I just think it's been a great story for them, rather than great performances.
Yeah, the country have got behind England because of their spirit and the way they've handled themselves, the way the manager's handled himself. But when you look at it, they also lost 3 games at this tournament. They won 3, they lost 3, and they drew the one against Colombia, which they win on penalties. And as Ali said, when they came up against the very best sides, tactically they weren't quite as good as those teams. Technically they weren't as good as those teams, and they didn't have individual players that were as good as Belgium, you know, and Croatia. So that's a major problem going forward. They've still got to find players that can take England to the next level. And when we're talking about the European Championships, I think Ali mentioned it a couple of days ago, other teams are going to get better. Spain will be better. Right. Germany are going to be better. So these sort of sides, it's not going to be easy for England to do well in the European Championship.
But people are getting upset. I mean, you've probably seen this on social media, but how many people are getting upset over a song?
Yeah, well, this is it. If you haven't seen it, the narrative is that England were very cocky because they were singing "It's Coming Home," and that thus motivated Croatia to go on and really beat them, as opposed to beat them a little bit.
And Luka Modric made some comments that this motivated the Croatian play. I don't buy it. I know I was jesting with you about the song because I kept hearing it, but I mean it's just part of it. You know what I mean? I don't think there was any arrogance about, you know, we're going to win this and we're going to win that. I think there was a hope and a dream once you got to the semi-finals.
Well, there should be. Why shouldn't there be a hope?
Why take that away from people? But the one thing I've seen, and particularly with England in this competition, for one reason or another, everybody wants to jump on them.
Yep.
If something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody, or a lot of people, not everybody, which is, I don't think kind of quite right, to be honest with you.
Let's bring Gab Marcotti into the conversation. He's at the Luzhniki Stadium ahead of the final tomorrow. And it's light. We're not used to seeing Gab in daylight, actually. There he is.
Thankfully.
It's better dark.
That was me, Gab. How would you assess England's tournament?
I mean, look, I echo what the guy said, the way Southgate behaved, the way the media-wise, England and the English public got to see what it's like to have a normal tournament with a normal coach, normal people, and having it be fun without sort of tabloid stories, without big stars from big clubs having a go at each other, without the whole sort of heavy negative atmosphere that often goes along or has gone along with England in past tournaments. I think that's really important and really positive. On the flip side, I think Southgate's right in managing expectations. When you guys were talking, I went through this in my head. He keeps talking about this very young team that's going to get better. How many in England's starting 11 were full-time bona fide starters at top 6 clubs in England? I'll answer that. Not many. It's Harry Kane, it's Sterling, it's Dele Alli. You know, you could make a case for Trippier, but then he liked him so much that he signed Serge Aurier. Henderson got those starts at the end because Emre Can and Oxlade-Chamberlain were injured. So you really don't have a tremendous amount of talent that's already there to work with. And Southgate said, right, well, we'll go out there and we're going to try to be pleasant. We're going to try to play well. We'll see how far it gets us. And it got them to the semifinal. It is what it is. But I think by that definition, by Southgate's definition, this is already a really big success for England.
A big success as well for Harry Kane, who takes the Golden Boot. Well, he'll probably take the Golden Boot, unless, of course, Griezmann or Mbappe get a hat-trick in the final. We'll win.
Which is possible, depending on how the game goes.
Yes, but it's a stretch, isn't it? So let's say...
It doesn't fit your storyline. So
Listen.
When was the last time a hat-trick was scored in the final? Let's think.
Well, let's just talk about a couple of the brightest, and certainly one of the brightest and best talents in the world of football, and Kylian Mbappe. It's just I mean, it's just beyond beggars' belief. They even think he might get a couple.
But he needs a hat-trick. He needs a hat-trick, doesn't he?
Yes, I know he needs a hat-trick.
Right, anyway, my debate is who's going to win the Golden Boot.
You've already given Harry Kane the Golden Boot, haven't you?
I have.
Just get yourself to Russia now and give him the damn thing.
That's it.
It's funny enough, it doesn't feel like a Harry Kane... And the goals...
It's not been a great tournament for him.
Set pieces, penalty kicks. It has petered out for him, as it petered out for England a little bit. But the fact is, it doesn't matter how you score them. But they haven't been Harry Kane-like goals that we've seen from Spurs.
Sure.
Where he's getting across defenders and he's scoring goals from outside the box. It hasn't been that kind of tournament. That being said, England haven't actually, when you look at it, had that many efforts on target in this World Cup. That's not the kind of game they've played this World Cup. They've been more of an organised side.
But the two players that were challenging for it, Lukaku and Harry Kane, played in the third and fourth playoff because they wanted to go and win the boot. Neither of them played very well today.
No,
Kane looked as though he was really tired. Lukaku had plenty of opportunities and his touch was poor. So they didn't really do themselves too much justice in the game today.
I can tell you that I could hear from afar Stevie Nicol howling every time that Lukaku took a bad touch on the ball. Sure. And he had a couple where inside the 18-yard box where the ball gets away from him. In terms of Harry Kane, regardless of what you saw or didn't see in this tournament from him, he still walks away from this tournament scoring a bunch of goals. And so I would look at it from the positive perspective. Look, I didn't score the sort of goals that I usually score, and yet I found a way to impact the result. And yet, somehow, we made it all the way to the semifinals. So I think there is something to be said about Harry Kane finding ways to score, even though it wasn't.
If you were Real Madrid and looking at him, would you sign him?
Not in the World Cup.
On the basis of the World Cup.
Not based on the World Cup. But I'm hoping that when you're signing players, you're not just basing it upon the 6 games that you saw in the World Cup.
But you still have a view on how he's played against the very top opposition, and you say it hasn't been good enough in the last 3 games. He hasn't done enough with the ball.
Are you saying that if you were Real Madrid, you wouldn't sign Harry Kane?
I think he's a good player, and he's been brilliant for Tottenham over the last 2 years. But you still have doubts. When you see players not perform on the highest stage, the biggest stage, you start to have doubts about them. I would have a slight doubt about whether he was tired, whether he wasn't able to link up with whoever he was playing with. And he wasn't playing for Spurs, where he's very, very happy. And we talked about it before. When you go to a new club, you've got to fit into the system. You've got to fit into your environment very, very quickly. I'm not sure Harry Kane... I would sign him, but I'm not sure it's the right thing for Harry Kane.
The system Tottenham play is closer to the system Real Madrid would play. Sorry, I had to bore you here, but is miles away from the system England have been playing. So the way that Southgate played, with the wing-backs, the 3 at the back, and the runners from midfield, and it was a lot of times it was trying to get Sterling in behind over the top. And we go back to the Croatia semi-final, there was a hell of a lot of long balls.
Yeah.
Some of them were educated long balls, and let's be frank about it, a lot of them were big hoofs from the centre-halves or the goalkeeper. That's not what he gets at Spurs, and that's not what he would get at Real Madrid. So I think playing his regular game has been more difficult in this England side because of the way they've set up than it would be at Tottenham and certainly Real Madrid.
The opposite is true as well when you talk about World Cup performances. James Rodriguez gets bought by Real Madrid based upon what he did in the World Cup, then gets to Real Madrid and it's not a starter.
It's lazy scouting when you just watch a World Cup and say, I tell you, he's a good player, we'll buy him.
So, look, I think the body of work for a Harry Kane is strong enough that if you're considering bringing a top striker to your team, he's got to be at the top of the list.
A word on Belgium, and I mentioned it to Ali earlier on. If they'd have lost or drawn against England, they'd have been in the World Cup final?
Yes.
Fair chance.
Yeah, fair chance. I think they were a good side. I think Roberto Martinez made 1 or 2 decent changes, and we have to give him Martinez. We have to give him credit for the way he led the side and kept them in the same formation. He only changed the formation once, and that was for that brilliant performance against Brazil. So I think they're a very good team, and they could be even better at the European Championships.
Yeah, well, you look at a team as compared to England, and we were talking about the lack of creativity in England. That's not the problem for Belgium. I mean, they have Eden Hazard coming, they have Kevin De Bruyne coming off the benches, Mertens, then you have Lukaku, who could clean up his finishing. There is a lot of options for Belgium. That wasn't the case for England, but certainly so for Belgium. And when you see that and then you look behind them, they also have balance out of the midfield. They also have good defenders behind them. And Thibaut Courtois had a good tournament. So overall, I just think Belgium is a tremendous team, and one that should be, as Craig mentioned earlier, their goal has to be winning the Euros. Yeah. It can't just be, hey, let's get to the semifinals. Your goals now, your ceiling has been raised by your performances, and now you have to go match us.
Other teams have to rebuild. Belgium have got it right at the moment.
Yeah. Might be without Vincent Kompany, because that's another 2 years down the line, and so there might be a shape to change or a void to fill, whatever way he wants to go. But when you've knocked out Brazil and played in the manner in which you have in this tournament, and then you win this 3rd, 4th playoff game, we could probably just sort of wipe it away a little bit because it wasn't hugely competitive. But thinking back to the Brazil game in particular, then I think if they had any doubts in their own mind, the France game was a little bit of a disappointment. But if any doubts, they should be gone. They're absolutely good enough to go to the Euros and win it. And quite frankly, I think nothing else should be expected from Martinez to go there and do it. That's his job. As the boy said, it's not to go there and be, semi-finals is great. This generation is going to come and go quite fast. Yeah. And to replenish that is going to be either very difficult or you're going to have to be very lucky. And I don't think we'll see this group of players coming through again with this quality.
No Meunier, of course, against France. We saw him score today. He was great against Brazil.
That was a major blow for them because he wasn't quite sure how to change the system. He didn't change the system. He used wingers almost in wide positions. Carrasco came back into the side. Meunier's an excellent wing-back. I mean, that's the one probably area where they need to improve, is getting a left wing-back that can do both sides of the game. Chadli provided the cross, but he's not really a left-back. He can't defend in 1v1 situations. So that's the only problem for them. Who do they play as a left wing-back? Because Meunier's excellent down the right-hand side. And it was a major blow that they lost him for that game against France.
Did you know, Stuart, that Gabriel Marcotti was one of the first journalists to write about the golden generation?
Yes. Yeah, well, he writes first about everything, as we know.
Gab,
apart from saying that Maguire and also, there was another player, and Walker, have been regulars for their team as well, which he missed out.
Yeah,
so we can go back to him now.
Well, can we not go back on Gab's previous errors? We've been here a while. Let's just focus. Final word goes to you on Belgium, Gab.
Well, Robbo, FYI, I did miss out Walker, but Maguire, I believe, doesn't play for a top 6 side in the Premier League. Not yet, anyway. But on Belgium, I agree. The bar's been raised. This is a team that's in full maturity. And I think, you know, they need to go and think about winning Euro 2020, and I'm sure they will be. And I also throw back to the skepticism that enveloped Roberto Martinez and Thierry Henry when they took over. And I think the two of them really deserve a lot of praise for how they've kept everything together and gone so deep in this tournament.